All right. Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Couch Warrior podcast. As always, I'm your host, Mike, and today we're going to be breaking down UFC Vegas 96. Now, if you guys see me looking over to the left a little bit, it's because the Contender Series is still on, and I do have a bet on Pat Pitlick, so I'm watching with a side eye, keeping track of what's happening. So if you see me looking over, that's why, and I know a lot of you might be watching this at the same time. Some of you guys might be coming to this video later because the Contender Series is going on right now, but there's nothing I could do about it. I had to do this time today, so we're going to do it. And hopefully some of you guys can enjoy and watch with me. I mean, break down the fights with me, but the rest of you hopefully will watch later, and I'll put up timestamps and everything for everybody. Now, I do want to start off by saying this is the Ultimate Fighter 32 finale. So there's going to be I believe it's the middleweight final, and then the featherweight final, and another fight as well that's being added. I don't want to spoil anything, and the last episode is today. I know everybody who's fighting except for one fight. I'm going to talk about it when we get there. I'll put up a spoiler, and what I'm going to do is, except for the Loder Valentin fight, because that one's already official, for the other two Ultimate Fighter ones, I'm going to leave those till the end of the video. I'm going to put up a spoiler, and anybody who doesn't want to see that, get out at that time, hop out, and you won't get spoiled, and then you can come back later and see what my predictions and breakdowns were. But I definitely want to break those down because I want to talk about it, and I think it's important, right? So we'll talk about them, but I'm going to try to do it in a way that it doesn't spoil it for anybody who doesn't want it to be spoiled or who doesn't already know. Now, yeah, let's hop right into it. We got, I think, 11 fights, counting the Ultimate Fighter fights, a few good ones. Not my favorite card in the world, but I think there's some betting value out there, and hopefully we can find some good spots. So first fight up, we've got Wang versus Victoria Leonardo. Let me shout out my guy over here real quick. What's up, Steffordson? Thanks for tuning in, bro. Armpit Gast. I don't know who Armpit is, but if you want to let me know, I can comment. But here we have Wang versus Victoria Leonardo. Wang 5-0 undefeated. She's 32 years old, 5'6" with a 66-inch reach. On the other side with Leonardo, she's 9-5-0, 34. She's 2 years older, 1 inch shorter, and she's going to be at a 2-inch reach disadvantage. So this is an interesting-ish fight. Not really. It's interesting because we get to see what Wang is about. She, you guys will hear a lot of hype about her this week. She's minus 1,000, minus 1,200, something crazy like that. It's because she fought Valentina Shevchenko in kickboxing back in 2015 or 16. And she won that fight. So, of course, there's going to be some hype, Like every time we get a guy on the Contender Series who has a win over Alex Pereira in kickboxing, right? They're the favorite. Everyone's hyping them up. And we got a similar situation here in Wang. But she should be okay, She should be okay in this fight. Leonardo, God bless her. She has the heart. She's got that dog in her. Reminds me of Sam Hughes. If you don't have that dog in you, even if you're much better than her, if she can break you, she'll break you. I'll give her that credit. Her grappling is decent. Her jiu-jitsu is decent. And her losses are all to really good competition. Like off the top of my head, I think it's Miranda Maverick, Natalia Silva, Melissa Gatto, and Manon Fiorot. 4 really good fighters, and can't give her too much hate for that. Now, that said, I think Wang should roll. I think she's a great striker. She's got great output, great combination, great kicks, great hands. Everything about the striking, I really like it. Don't have a ton of info on her counter grappling, but the takedown defense seems solid, and she does threaten front chokes and whatnot. And the jiu-jitsu actually looks pretty good for somebody who comes from a striking background. So the way I see it, Wang probably wins this fight. She probably outstrikes Leonardo clean. I think that there is a small chance that maybe Wang doesn't have the best cardio, and maybe her takedown defense isn't that great because we don't have a lot of tape on it, right? She's super green in MMA. Wang started MMA in 2022. As a professional, and she didn't fight as an amateur. So she started MMA literally in 2022. That was her first fight. So while she's really good in the striking, she's still very green. And we've seen this story time and time again, where Someone has everything they need, but they're just not developed yet. So I'd be very careful. Don't parlay Wang. I'll start with that. It adds nothing to your parlay, and it opens you up to a terrible loss that you'll be really upset about. But that said, I do think there's ways to play this because, again, while she's untested and green, I do think she has what it takes to keep this on the feet. And from what I've seen, she doesn't seem like a quitter to me. She seems like she's got the heart in her. She seems like she's got the cardio. And I think she'll probably be okay here. I think she can keep it on the feet, outstrike Leonardo. The way I'm looking to play this is I'm thinking, how about Wang round 3 decision, right? So decision's like plus 170. And I think that's a solid play too, because Leonardo's durable as all hell. Maybe that durability is starting to go because Natalia Silva, as good as she is, she's not really a crazy, like one kick or one punch knockout kind of fighter. But I don't really think Wang is either. And I just don't know if Leonardo is going to get caught early here. So I'm looking at that round 3 decision. I think that Wang, she didn't finish Wu Yanan, who also isn't very great. So I'm thinking she beats up on Leonardo. I'm thinking she wins convincingly, but I'm thinking it comes later or by decision. So I'm going to target that. I'm going to see what it is on DraftKings. I'm hoping for something like plus 120 or better, and I'd be happy to hop in for a unit there. So that's what I'll be looking at. I'll be looking at Wang round 3 decision. Otherwise, I wouldn't play this. I wouldn't parlay it. If anything, maybe a tiny shot on Leonardo, but I don't think she's going to win. I think she's going to lose. So for me, it's Wang. And in terms of a bet, Wang round 3 or decision. And we can move on. Next up, we've got Josiane Nunes versus Jacqueline Cavalcanti. Cavalcanti, I think is the way you pronounce it, the fancy way. Nunes is 10-2-0. She's 30 years old, 5'2" with a 67-inch reach. Cavalcanti, 6-1-0. She's 26, so she's 4 years younger. She's going to be 6 inches taller, and she's going to have a 3-inch reach advantage. So I think Cavalcanti wins. I do think the money line's a bit wide just because you watch Cavalcanti and even Zarafarin, even Jindrova in her loss in the PFL, where they had a lot of success was when they backed her up, right? When they backed her up and made it harder for her to get her clean striking going, they were able to find success. Jindrova was able to hurt her. And we see this time and time and time again, right? You put a really good kickboxer, somebody with clean striking on their back foot, and they tend to struggle a lot more than when they're advancing, right? Even with Izzy and DDP. When Izzy was the one moving forward, he looked amazing. When he was the one getting backed up, he looked awful. So that's kind of how I think about it. And I think that Nunes, I don't love her game at all, and I'll get into it in a second, but on the good side, she does have really good forward pressure. She does hit really hard, and she is someone who's likely to put Cavalcanti on her back foot and make her struggle a little bit. So I think that Nunes is live in this fight. I think there's worse underdog plays that you can make, but it's not one that I want to make because in the end of the day, I don't rate Nunes whatsoever. I bet Pasquale against her. I bet Zarafarin against her, and I think that was a good bet. And I bet Chelsea Chandler against her, and I don't rate any of them. Just to give you an idea of what I think of Nunes. Nunes hits hard, sure, but she's incredibly undersized. She's not one of these fighters who, despite being undersized, is able to pull through. The reason she's pulling through is because her opposition is horrible. Did he just get finished? Ah, man. Pitlick got finished. All right. Well, quick recap on Dana White's Contender Series now that it's over. I did bet Torres Finney by decision at plus 500 for a quarter unit. That cashed. Then I bet Kuna moneyline plus 500 for a quarter unit. That lost. And I just lost Pitlick half a unit on the money line at like plus 210. So I think I ended up profiting ever so slightly. I'll take it. This Contender Series season has been pretty tough so far, and I'm super hyped for the next one because Malcolm Wellmaker's fighting, but that's a topic for another show. Back to this fight, though. Nunes, like I said, I'm just not high on her. Her striking is not technical whatsoever. It's just wild and depends on her power. Her grappling is non-existent. Absolutely no defensive grappling, no offensive grappling. Her cardio sucks. I don't understand why people love her so much. I can't wrap my head around it. There's nothing, in my opinion, that exciting about her. I think she's sloppy. I think she's undersized. I really don't like her as a fighter personally. And Cavalcanti, while I'm not crazy about the style, she is a really good fighter. She's got great striking. She's good at maintaining the range. She has really good output. A lot of kicks. I would like a bit more with the hands, especially against Nunes, because I have a feeling that if she's throwing a lot of kicks, and a lot of them are naked, a lot of them aren't set up with the hands, if she's throwing those leg kicks, I think she's going to get caught a few times. So that's one of the reasons I think Nunes is live on top of the forward pressure. And that's why I can't get the Cavalcanti money line. But if she does start using those hands more and sets up those leg kicks, then I think Nunes is cooked. If she comes out here fighting like she did against Farron and throws almost primarily kicks, I think Nunes is live. If Cavalcanti comes out here and leads with the hands and follows up with the kicks, then I think Nunes is cooked. So I'm picking Cavalcanti. I don't want to lay the chalk on her. I don't want to lay minus 170 or whatever it is, just because I can make a valid argument for how Nunes wins this fight. But what I am kind of interested in is I'm kind of interested in Cavalcanti by knockout. It's plus 1,000. And I know Nunes is really durable, but at the end of the day, she got hurt by Zara, who's a much bigger woman than her. And so is Cavalcanti. Cavalcanti is only a little bit smaller than Farron. I think Farron hits harder than Cavalcanti, but I think Cavalcanti is more live for an attritional kind of finish. If she's leading with those hands, if she's using those leg kicks, if she's investing to the body, Nunes has bad cardio already, and she's a very easy target to hit. So if she just does that and invests early in the body and the legs, and we know she's going to go to the legs, if she does that, I think she's live to put Nunes away. And at plus 1,000, I feel like you kind of have to take the shot. So I'm probably going to pass, but I'll be looking at Cavalcanti by knockout. I'll be looking at Cavalcanti round 3 decision. I think that's another possible way to play it. And that's really it for this fight, and we can move on. Damn, I wish Pitlick didn't get finished. That sucks. But anyways, next up, we've got Jose Medina versus Zach Reese. Medina 11-3-0. He's 33 years old, 6 feet tall with a 74-inch reach. On the other side, Reese 7-1-0. He's 30, so he's 3 years younger, 4 inches taller, and he's got a 3-inch reach advantage. So if you're not familiar with Medina, it's probably for good reason. He's never done anything worth noticing, really. And he got brought onto the Contender Series to lose to what's his name? Gaziasulov. He got brought on to lose, and he lost in impressive fashion. Not impressive, like impressive in that he didn't do anything. All he did was motion the guy on and say, "Yeah, bring it on," while he's losing, which to me is a red flag. Dana loved it. So now Medina's here. Why? I still don't understand why he got signed. I'm assuming Dana thought, you know what? He looked cool doing that. I know he's going to lose to guys in the UFC. Let me bring in a cheap guy to get some of my prospects some wins. I think that's why he brought him. Now, Reese on the other side, 7-1-0, 30 years old. Did I already go over this? I don't remember. 6'4", he's 4 inches taller, 3-inch reach advantage. I don't know how much I trust Reese. Like, I can't lay minus 400 on him just because we still don't really know what his cardio is like. He's never been out of the first round. Never. Right? I don't think I'm wrong about that. He's never been out of the first round. We have no idea what he looks like extended. It could be, you know, he's this young prospect who just hasn't been tested, but has good cardio. But it can also be that he falls off a cliff. And a guy like him who fights so explosive, so aggressive, I wouldn't be shocked if the cardio was terrible and he ends up falling off a cliff. It's entirely possible. I think he's a much better striker. I think he's got a much better game overall. I think he's got better grappling, although he's not much of an offensive grappler, but I think he's more likely to throw up submissions. And Medina, I just don't know really what to like about him. I like that he's a dog. You know, he won't quit. He's a decent striker, I guess. His output isn't that good. He's inaccurate as hell. Not a ton of power. So again, I mean, Reese should be able to roll here. He should be able to finish Medina, maybe. Medina's durable, but also that guy Gaziasulov, he's just not a great finisher. I mean, he took Ribeiro to a decision, right? So he's not really the best finisher. I think that Medina seems durable, but I think that a guy who hits really hard like Reese is very live to put him away, and we just don't know for sure. But I think Reese is likely to finish him early. I think he can knock him out. If he somehow gets to the ground, maybe Reese can pick up a sub. I think a knockout is a lot more likely. Reese hits really hard. He's a great striker. He's very explosive. But again, then it comes down to what happens if we leave the first round. I don't know. If I had a better fighter on the other side than Medina, You guys know me if you're watching, or if you're not and you're new, I would probably be fading Reese then, because if I don't trust your cardio and I'm getting a huge dog shot on a decent guy, I'm gonna take them. But I don't know if I really rate Medina even decent. So for me, I'm gonna pass on this fight. I don't want to bet Reese early because it's already chalked up. I definitely don't want to touch his money line because it's chalked up, but I don't want to bet Medina either. So I'm just gonna pass. But I do think Reese should put him away. Maybe like an over, or like Reese round 2, round 3, hoping that Medina is as durable as they're making him out to be. That could be a spot. Maybe I'll check those out. I like those spots usually, when everybody expects a round 1 finish, like the Tom Nolan fight this past weekend, right? Everyone and their mom is screaming round 1 knockout. This fight shouldn't have even been made. And what do we get? We got a competitive 15-minute fight. Maybe not competitive, but it was competitive at moments. So if I do play Reese, maybe it'll be something like that, something a little bit against the grain that still makes sense, but we'll see. Moving on, we got Viacheslav Borshchev versus James Llontop. Borshchev 7-4-1. He's 32, 5'11" at the 69-inch reach. Llontop 14-3-0, 25, so he's 7 years younger, going to be 1 inch taller, and he's going to have a 4-inch reach advantage. So 6-hound over here, Medina via Aura. You guys know I love that word. I love that word. But yeah, so for this fight, it's an interesting one. The way I see it normally with Borshchev is, if you don't have grappling, I think Borshchev beats you. I think that in the lightweight division, he's got some of the best striking on the roster. He's extremely fast. He's powerful. And he's just such a clean striker. And his output is great too, but he's such a clean striker. Goes to the body, goes to the head. He mixes it up so well. And my first read was that Llontop has more weapons and that he has knees, elbows, kicks. But honestly, Borshchev does too, especially like in the Sadyakov fight. He was throwing those elbows. He was throwing knees. He's throwing kicks. He's got leg kicks, head kicks, body kicks. So I'm not even really convinced anymore that Llontop has more weapons. And if he doesn't, and I know that he's not much of a grappler, I have to think that Borshchev probably wins. Now, here's where I start to get a little bit shaky is I can't tell if Borshchev has a bad chin or not. That's my problem. I don't know if he has a good chin or not. A few fights ago, I would have said he has a good chin. I've seen him take some big shots. But at this point, I've seen him wobbled multiple times. Sadyakov hurt him, knocked him down. Chase Hooper knocked him down. And I just feel like Llontop could probably hurt him too, If Hooper knocked you down, now, God bless Hooper, his improvements have been fantastic. But at the end of the day, that was just a left overhand. That's what he got him with. And that's not a great look. It really isn't. Now, you could say Borshchev wasn't expecting it. That's what I think. That's why I think it happened. But still, at chalk, at minus 250, you have to be at least thinking about it. And with Llontop, now, if he had any grappling, I'd already be on this because he's a good striker too. And I think he could be competitive if he can mix in grappling. But he doesn't often wrestle. His own takedown defense isn't good. His own ground game isn't that great. It's okay, but it's not that great. So I don't expect it from him. I think this will be stand-up. And Llontop in his own right, he's a great striker, and he's very young. So he'll be improving fight to fight to fight. I'm not sure where he's training now. I would like him at a major camp. I think that would be really good for him. But he's not, as far as I can tell. But his striking is good. He's also got a good output. Like I mentioned earlier, he has a lot of weapons. He's got kicks. He's got knees. He's got step-in elbows. He's a great striker too. And if Borshchev really does have chin concerns, again, like Sadyakov, for example, in a fight where Borshchev was landing more, seemed to be landing better, but he still was knocked down. He was still hurt. And in the Hooper fight, he got hurt. He got knocked down. I think that Llontop has good striking. He's got power. So I wouldn't be shocked if he also knocked Borshchev down or out. I wouldn't be really shocked about that. That said, everything considered, I still think Borshchev is a better striker, and I still think he has more power, and I still think he's a lot faster, and I do think he has better output, and I don't expect Llontop to shoot or get takedowns successfully because Borshchev's takedown defense has gotten better. I can see him going for those underhooks immediately, shucking guys off. So I have to think that Borshchev wins. I don't know if I'm going to play this or how I'll play it. Maybe another, I was going to say round 3 decision, but then it's like, why do I think it's more likely to finish in the third than the first or second? And Llontop doesn't have bad cardio, so he's not going to gas. So I feel like a first round or second round knockout is just as likely, if not more likely, because Borshchev will be fresher. So that's why I might stay off of that. I might just stay off of this fight entirely. This is a fight that's on my list to come back to. I don't like to retape a lot of fights because then I'll overthink. But some fights, I think it's fair to say, you know what? Maybe I'm tired right now. I just watched a ton of tape for multiple people. Maybe I should come back to this another day. And that's how I feel about this fight. So I think Borshchev should win. I think he can win by knockout. I think he could win by decision. But I need to come back to it to see if there's a way I can target this. Otherwise, I'll stay away. If the line really blows out and Llontop hits something absurd, like plus 300, which I don't think it will, but if it does, then I'd hop in. But otherwise, I'll probably pass and we can move on. All right, next up, we have a fight that was made today. We have Denis Buzukja versus Francis Marshall. Buzukja 12-4-0. He's 26. He's 5'9" with a 70-inch reach. On the other side, Marshall 7-2-0. He's 25. He's 1 year younger. Going to be the same height, and he's going to be at a 2-inch reach advantage. Now, this fight literally got announced a few hours ago, and I just got home recently, so I didn't get to tape this, but I already have a play. I normally don't like to make a play when I haven't taped yet, but if I feel like the odds are somewhere where, like, odds are somewhere I like, and I feel pretty comfortable that I have a good read on both guys, I'll make the play. And I feel pretty comfortable with my play here. I did play Marshall at minus 110, and I fully intend on adding. If I tape this, after I tape this fight, if I feel the way I do now, and the line remains the same or even gets better, I'm expecting to possibly get plus money. If that happens, you guys might see one of my biggest bets this year on Francis Marshall. The way I see it, I think we're getting a buy low spot on him. He's coming off 2 losses. He lost to Dolgarian as the favorite, and he lost to Gomez. But I just think those guys are better than Buzukja. Like, I just do. I mean, Dolgarian's a featherweight, but that's a discussion for another day. And so is Gomi, actually. Well, we're at featherweight. I don't know why I thought I was at bantamweight for a second. So disregard that. But regardless, I know that Marshall's on short notice. I get it. And I get that he's coming off of 2 losses. But Dolgarian is a beast. Gomi is a good fighter. He's not exciting. He's not fun, but he's a good fighter. And Buzukja is a decent fighter too, but I don't know necessarily if he's super UFC caliber. We'll see. It's something that we're still watching. We're still figuring it out. He is a Staten Island native. That's where I grew up. Spent most of my life in Staten Island. Actually, at this point, no, but I did grow up in Staten Island, so I've got some bias towards him, but not enough where I'm going to be blind to bets or spots or picks. And with Buzukja, you know, he's well-rounded. He's a well-rounded fighter. He can wrestle. He can strike. He's got some power. He's got decent takedown defense. He has good cardio. He's got the will in him. He's got the dog in him. He's good, you know. But I think that Marshall is better, and I think that he's young. And I'm glad. Like a lot of people will point out, you know, he's been out for a while. I like that. I like that. You're young. You just got cooked in your last fight against a debutant, a prospect. Take a second, go back, figure out what went wrong, figure out what you can fix, and go from there. And I think that Marshall, I'm glad that he took that time off. I heard he's at an American Top Team now, which I really like. And from what I've heard about the kid, you know, I interviewed Connor Matthews, and Connor was telling me how they trained together after their fight. He's a very intelligent guy, and I expect him to keep getting better and better. And he's super young. They both are very young. But he's really young. He was very young when he took that Dolgarian loss. That was, 24 years old. And I just think that even put away all the narratives I just said, I think Marshall's a better striker. I think Marshall's a better grappler. I think the cardio, both guys have good cardio. But Buzukja, for example, in the Connor Matthews fight, right? Now we're going to do a little bit of MMA math. If you guys watch me, you know I don't believe in that. But this is a little different, I would say. I'm not doing MMA math. I'm doing wrestling math. So you watch Buzukja and you watch the Connor Matthews fight. If Connor went to the grappling more, he was going to win that fight, in my opinion. That's what I think. I think that was a very winnable fight for Matthews. And I think he lost because of bad game planning and bad fight IQ. And he didn't grapple when he should have. Marshall, I don't expect to make the same mistake. Marshall will strike with him, but I think Marshall will wrestle. I think Marshall's wrestling is better than Matthews. I mean, again, he completely out-wrestled Matthews. We're doing wrestling math now. He completely out-wrestled Matthews. Matthews had a significant wrestling advantage over Buzukja. I have to think that in terms of the grappling, Marshall is going to be a better grappler. Marshall will be able to get him down. Marshall will be able to control him. Marshall's got great jiu-jitsu also that's underrated. And again, and he's got good striking, and also he's got low-key power. So outside of the short notice, I don't see anything not to like about him in this fight. And I just really favor him. I think he has a higher ceiling, and at minus 110 at Pick'em, I think it's a great play. I personally would have put Marshall around like 60%. So we're talking what, like minus 155? I think that's where he should have been. And that's where he was for a while. But now he's like now he's minus 115. And if things keep going the way they do, I think we might get an underdog play on him. So I do like Marshall in this spot. Again, I'm going to go back and tape this one. But just speaking from what I know and from what I've seen and from what I remember, I like Marshall a lot in this fight. Real quick, I do want to catch up over here. My guy CT, what's good, bro? Did Finney get signed or no? Because that's hilarious. I can't believe he said that. I'm assuming he didn't. But please let me know if he did or did not. Because regardless of what happened tonight, I'm a huge Finney's fan. He was on the show. He was I did an interview with him. He's such an awesome dude. He such good energy, like great guy. I'm seeing he didn't get signed. That sucks. That sucks. He's got the heart, you know. It's just he's really undersized for middleweight, and I don't know what he can do about it because he can't go up. Obviously, he's already undersized, and he can't go down because I don't think he can physically lose the weight. I don't think he can lose the weight. He's small, but he's compact as hell. So I just don't know what you do with a guy like that. I think he's got talent, and he's definitely got the heart for it, and he's athletic, but I don't know. I don't know what you do with him. I would have signed him, but I'm biased. We can move on, though. Next up, we've got Edmen Shahbazyan. We're already on the main card? That's crazy. We got Edmen Shahbazyan versus Gerald Meerschaert. Shahbazyan 13-4-0, 26, 6'2" with a 75-inch reach. Meerschaert on the other side, 36, 17-0, 36. So he's 10 years older. Going to be 1 inch shorter, and he's going to have a 2-inch reach advantage. Real quick, he signed Romius. I'm not surprised. I'm assuming he signed Kuniev. I'm assuming he signed Haddon, and I'm assuming he signed Gustafsson. Let me know if I'm right there, guys. Only had one fight, then immediately it's Dana. I mean, I was literally just talking about Medina, and Medina lost completely, and he signed him. I mean, Medina would probably lose to Finney. Not probably. He would lose to Finney, but here we are. Anyways, back to this fight. So I think Edmen should win. Edmen is still, at this day, he's still young. He's 26 only. Younger than me. Actually, 9 months. We might be the same age. If he has an October birthday, we're the same age. But he's really young. He's been in the UFC for so long that our brains kind of think he's older, but he's not. He's young. He's improving. He just got signed really, really young. But his takedown defense has improved a lot. We all know that the issue with him has always been the ground game. Not the best takedown defense, not the best work once he's down on the ground on his back. And Meerschaert is a guy who will take advantage. You know, the way I see it with Meerschaert, this is kind of the fights that he tends to win. When he's fighting a prospect or a solid striker, but who has a questionable ground game and who he could possibly break, this seems like a matchup that Meerschaert can win because he's still an elite jiu-jitsu practitioner. Wrestling's not that great, but enough to get it to the ground. And the striking's decent. But that said, at this point, he's almost 37. I do think he's on a decline. And I think Edmen's the opposite. I think Edmen is going to start going up now. And this seems to me like a fight that Edmen really should win. I think Edmen is the way better striker, way more likely to get a knockout. In fact, I do think he probably will get a knockout. And I don't necessarily think that Meerschaert's just going to be able to out-grapple him. I think Edmen should be able to keep it on the feet. Meerschaert, he's got good jiu-jitsu, but he doesn't really have great wrestling. And a lot of these subs are coming against guys who are willing to grapple him, and then he picks up the sub, or against guys who completely just break or gas out. And I don't really think Edmen's going to break. I don't think Edmen's going to gas out. I think Edmen should win this fight. I think he probably wins by knockout. But it's a fight that I want to come back to later and kind of look at it again. If the line really blows out, yeah, I take a GM3 shot. Because, again, this is the classic kind of fight that he tends to win. But I think more than likely he doesn't win. I think more than likely Edmen's able to pick up another win here. And we can move on. No reason to waste time. Next up, we've got Michael Morales versus Neil Magny. Morales, 16-0, undefeated. He's 25 years old, 6 feet tall with a 79-inch reach. On the other side, Magny, 29-11-0. He's 37. He's going to be 6'3", so he's 3 inches taller, 12 years older, and he's going to have a 1-inch reach advantage. I'm not going to waste a ton of time here. I love Neil Magny. He made me quite a bit of money against Mike Mallet. I did play that round 3 because you guys know me. I play my round 3s, and that was great. But at the end of the day, Magny's really getting up there in age. At this point, he's taken so much damage. He's had 40 fights, and he's still solid. You know, he's still a competitive striker. He's still good in the clinch. He's good at making people fight his fight. You know, he's fighting guys, and even though they should know that they can beat him at range, they'll clinch up with him. And that's where he starts to have success. And he can out-grapple people. He's got good wrestling. He's got solid jiu-jitsu. He's got good cardio. That said, I don't think he's beating Mike Morales here. I really don't. I think the line, while it's crazy, I don't necessarily think it's wide, which is crazy coming from me, right? Because normally if I'm looking at a minus 800, I'm going to try to make an argument for the dog. But I can't really make an argument for Magny here. I'm not going to play Morales by any means. I'm certainly not playing minus 800. But I'm going to look into how I could play it. I'm going to look at Morales ITD. I'm going to look at Morales round 3 decision. Those are spots that I'd be interested in. I just think that Morales is he's really, really good. He's really well-rounded. He's a great striker. He's got great cardio. He's got really good wrestling. Sometimes he's a little bit too tentative, and he doesn't come out hot enough. He's a little slow. But I just think he has everything he needs to beat Magny. I don't think Magny's taking him down. I think Morales can take him down. I think at range, Morales is much better. I think Morales has the power edge. So I don't really know how Magny can win here because I don't expect Morales to gas either. I don't really know what Magny's going to have for him. So I'll be looking at Morales ITD. I'll be looking at Morales KO. I'll be looking at Morales round 3 decision. I haven't made any of those plays yet. You guys know if you want my plays, they're all free, but they're on my Discord, Couch Warrior Podcast Discord. The link is in the description of this video. It's in my link tree for my Twitter and for my YouTube. And that's where you get my bets, my breakdowns, my notes, and we talk a lot of fights in there, a lot of MMA, a lot of promotions. We got channels for everything. Make sure to check that out. And if I make a play on Morales, that's where it's going to be posted. But I do think I'm going to play him in some way, probably ITD, but it's something I need to come back and look at a little bit more. All right. Next up, we've got our first Ultimate Fighter finale. Again, I'm going to go over the other 2 fights that are happening on this card. There's one Ultimate Fighter fight happening that's not a finale. They made it for whatever reason. I have a few guesses, and I'll talk about those guesses when we get there. And then I'll talk about what we expect to be the actual finale for the featherweight weight class. But I'm going to do it at the end. I'm going to yell out spoilers. I'm going to play a banner that says spoilers because the episode doesn't start until about another 20 minutes from now. So there will be spoilers. So I don't want anybody just hopping in here and having it ruined for them. I know there's people out there sharing the news when it's not official yet at all and the show is still going on. And it's not nice to do that. So I want to break it down because it's a breakdown show and I only do 1 video a week. But I'm going to do it at the end, and I'm going to try to scream spoiler as loud as I can so I don't ruin anything for anybody. But our middleweight final is final, and we can talk about it now. We have Ryan Loder versus Robert Valentin. Loder, 6'1-0. He's 33. He's 6'2", and I believe he's training at Alpha Male. And Valentin, he's 10-3-0. He's 29, so he's going to be 4 years younger. Going to be the same height. And I don't know Loder's reach, but Valentin has a 77-inch reach. Now, in this fight, so I think all the finishing upside is with Valentin. And I actually taped this one back twice in a row. So I taped it once, I had my opinion, and then I taped it again, and I kind of changed my opinion. And on the first run, I was like, wow, okay, Valentin makes sense. And then I ran it back one more time, and I was like, you know what? Maybe not. In terms of finishing upside, it's all on the Valentin side. He's got more power, he's explosive, and he's a very opportunistic submission grappler. He isn't necessarily a great wrestler, but if you give him any kind of position on the ground, he's going to try to see what kind of sub he can throw up on you. He can scramble. He's very active off his back. He'll throw up submissions. He'll try to hit you. He's solid. And in this fight, he's going to have all the finishing upside. That said, I think Loder's pretty solid in his own right, just in a different way. So Loder's a credentialed grappler, 4-time All-American, if I'm not mistaken, in the wrestling department. And just in MMA, you know, you watch him. He's got good wrestling. He's got good takedowns. I would like if he set it up a little bit more with the hands, but it does work for him. The control is decent. Ground and pound is decent. I would like if he was a bit more of a threat on the ground, but he's not. But he does have solid control, and he does have solid wrestling, and he seems to be a smart fighter. His striking is pretty good. I think that Valentin is a better striker with more power, but I think Loder is competitive, fighting out of southpaw, so a bit of a different look, and I think he can compete on the feet. And my issue with Valentin is I don't like his takedown defense at all. I think he's a little bit too reliant on that ability to submit guys. He's a little bit too reliant on the ability to maybe scramble. And I think that Loder can compete with him on the feet. Loder probably won't hurt him, but he can be competitive. He can have his moments. He can land strikes and actually win minutes too. But I think where we'll really come in for Loder is I think the grappling. If he can mix in that wrestling, get his takedowns like he normally does, you know, the win he had on the Ultimate Fighter against Shaban, that's an impressive win. Omer Shaban is a good fighter too, very similar to Valentin in that he's a very big finishing threat, at least on the feet, but on the ground also. And Loder was able to be very smart there, stayed safe, did what he had to do to win the fight. And that's what I need to see out of a guy who's a big underdog, you know? He's now what? He's like, I think plus 150 was what I saw last, plus 160 now. And I just think that's incorrect. I think that you make Valentin, I don't know, 60% at most. And I think that's a little bit much. I think 55%-ish is probably the proper line. So we're looking at something between what, like minus 140 and minus 155, minus 160. That, I guess, makes sense. I think that's accurate. But now we're looking at minus 180. I think we're starting to get a little out of hand. And I will probably get to a play on Loder. I do think I'll get to a play on him. I'm going to wait because I know there's a lot of hype on Valentin. And just from the people I've spoken to, they seem to like him a lot. So I'm going to wait. I'm going to see what happens with the line. And I'm going to get to a bet, I think. So we can move on. But real quick, let's catch up with the chat. Let's see what we got. Champ saying, I like the danger factor of the Swiss Jerry here. I think he's improving a lot and won't be held down as much as he's been in the past. That's fair. You know, that's fair. But I don't know if I'm ready to make that assumption at minus 185. That's the thing. If he was the underdog, then I'm going to make that, you know, that assumption. Okay, I'm not laying crazy chalk on him. Maybe he improved. But if he's minus 185, I'm not going to make that bet and then be like, okay, I really hope that he gets up faster this time. Probably not the move. And Loder is probably one of the better wrestlers he's fought. So Nevro, I believe you're relatively new to the chat. Welcome. And if you're not, thanks for tuning in. Can't wait to see how they match up the Contender Series contract winners. The fades will be on. Let me think. Okay, so Haddon is a flyweight, I believe, or a bantamweight. I'm not even sure who you give him. You can give him a lot of people. He's a good fighter. I wouldn't even like worry about giving him a can or anything. I think he can handle good guys. Finney didn't get signed. Romeus got signed. Romeus is what, a bantamweight? Also, I'm not really even sure who you give him. Like trying to think. Off the top of the head, I'm not sure. Kuniev, I mean, you can give Kuniev a whole assortment of people. I don't know if we still have Parisian on the roster, but that's an option. If Rebellis is a broken toy now, we can throw Rebellis to him. Who else is there out there? There's plenty of options for Kuniev. And then Gustafsson, I need to watch him. I didn't really get to see the performance. I saw he got the finish, and I know how he fights. But honestly, I'm not super high on him. So we'll see. But I think there's going to be a lot of fading opportunities there. My guy, Tyler. What's good, bro? Hoping we're on the same side on this one. You let me know. Are you on Loder or Valentin? But we can move on. Next up, we're already up to the co-main event. Angela Hill versus Tabatha Ricci. Hill 17-13-0, 39. She's 5'3" with a 64-inch reach. Ricci 10-2-0. She's 29, so she's 10 years younger, 2 inches shorter, and she's at a 3-inch reach disadvantage. I haven't gotten to tape this fight yet, so I'll tell you guys straight up. This is one of the few fights that I didn't really get to look into, but I'll circle back, and you guys will have my YouTube shorts, the 1 minute video for each fight that you guys could check out and see where I'm at. You can also hop in the free Discord, like I mentioned earlier. That's where I post all my bets, my notes, my breakdowns, and you can get my breakdown there once I get to look at this a little bit more. But I don't know. I love Hill. She's been one of my favorite women's fighters for a long time. I bet her as a tremendous underdog many, many, many times. She's old, reliable. You know exactly what she's going to do. She's very well-rounded. Her grappling has come a long way. She's got good submissions in her own right now. She's got great striking, fantastic output, great cardio. She's got that dog in her. There's not much to not like about Hill. Just that at this point, she's 39, almost 40, and she's been in a lot of fights. But Ricci's not really a power hitter. So I don't know that Ricci's going to take advantage of any damage on the hillside. And Ricci, she's a good wrestler. She's got good jiu-jitsu, very good jiu-jitsu, and she's a good striker. She's a solid boxer, but her reach is very limited. We're working with a 61-inch reach. She's very short. Hill has good takedown defense. She should be able to keep this on the feet, and if she does, I don't really see a reason not to favor Hill. Because I do think we're going to be standing. And you asked me who's the favorite in a kickboxing or boxing match. And I'm going to tell you Hill. She's going to throw a lot more nice, clean, straight strikes, and she's going to have the reach advantage. And I think it's going to be significant here. So I do lean towards Hill. I'm going to have to look at this one a little bit more, see if there's maybe an angle. Because at the end of the day, Ricci is much younger. She's only 29, improving fight to fight, and she's already very well-rounded. She's a great fighter, is Ricci. She's in no means a bad fighter. She's good. But I just think that Hill, on paper, is a very tough matchup for her. It's just really going to come down to is Hill starting to be on a downtrend or not? Because if Hill's not on a downtrend, I'm pretty confident she takes this one. But if she is, she could definitely lose this one. And playing Hill at chalk, she's not really chalk. It's almost pick 'em. But I don't often play Hill as the favorite. I play her as the underdog because she's old, reliable, because I can trust her. But as a favorite against a younger prospect who is very legitimate, I don't know if I'm ready to go and just lay a unit, 1.2 units to win one. I don't really know if I want to do that. So I'll pick Hill. But again, it's a fight I need to come back to and look at. And we can move on. Let's see what we got in the chat. Tyler saying that he agrees with me that the line is wide. Okay, well, then I'm going to guess that you agree with me on Loder. Champ saying, I think Hill's better, should win, but she's going to get robbed anyways. Yeah, that sucks, right? That happens way too often with Hill. And I've lost twice that way on her. I bet her against, we're talking about 2020 now. We're talking about, damn, what's her name? Hill was like plus 300. Hold on. Claudia Gadelia. So, fun fact. I've been watching MMA my whole life, but I didn't get into the gambling aspect of it until COVID, like a lot of you guys. My brother showed me how to bet, and that's kind of how I got into it. And I think this was maybe the second or third card where I was already betting. Might have even been the first, actually. And I remember me and my brother was showing me what a parlay is. And I'm looking at this parlay stuff, and I started looking up, like I was using Reddit at the time. So I started looking up UFC fights, betting, whatever. And I saw some guy who was like, Hill, bet Hill. Didn't know the guy, Never saw it before. Knew nothing. Told my brother, yo, put Hill in our parlay. And my brother said, are you sure? I said, yes, I'm sure. Put Hill. And you know what? She won that fight. She got absolutely robbed in that fight. But that's when my Hill love started to grow. I was like, okay, you know what? She lost. She got robbed, but she's legit. She's legit. And the best part of it is she's underrated and they underprice her all the time. And then the other time she got robbed was Lemos. Again, like plus 300. Thought she clearly beat Lemos and got robbed, but what can you do? Rich lost her last fight. Hill could lose a decision. Yeah. I mean, I get it. She could get robbed. It happens, but I don't break down. I don't break down the fights based off of perceived possible robberies. I try to tend to stick to what I think is going to happen, and I think Hill should be able to win. But again, it's a fight that I need to tape properly. All right, let's move on to our main event. We've got Gerald Cannonier versus Kai Borralho. Cannonier 17-7-0, 40 years old, 5'11" with the 77-inch reach. Borralho 16-1-0, 31. He's 9 years younger, 2 inches taller, and he's at a 2-inch reach disadvantage. So look, Borralho is the younger guy. He's got all the momentum. He's the one fighting at training out of Fight Nerds, and everybody loves them now. The hottest camp in the sport right now. And there's a lot to like about the guy. I think we're getting a little bit ahead of ourselves with the line, just because when I'm watching them back, I don't see how Borralho can be competitive with Cannonier on the feet. I don't. I think his striking has improved leaps and bounds, and he looks good. You know, southpaw, nice straight strikes, fantastic jab, good combos, good 1-2. But at the end of the day, he's still not like great at the striking, is what I think. And Cannonier is a great striker with a ton of power, ton of output, a ton of 5-round experience. This is Borralho's first time going 5 rounds. And I just think it's a tough spot to get to minus 200 or so with Borralho, because what happens if he gasses in the 4th and 5th? Are you convinced that his cardio is good enough? I think it's good enough. Am I that certain to lay minus 200? I don't know about that. And if for some reason he can't get it to the ground, I think he can. But if he can't, and Cannonier has shown great takedown defense, if Borralho can't get him down, he might be screwed. Like if I'm watching this live and I see that Borralho is not able to get the takedowns and Cannonier is still the underdog, I'm betting Cannonier live. It's just a fact. If that's what I see happening, I'm going to do it. That said, it's MMA. It's not striking. And just from watching Borralho and from what I know about him and from all this time of watching him, following him, I do think that his cardio is very good. I do think that his cardio will hold up for a 4th and 5th. I do think he's an elite grappler. I think his wrestling is very solid, very good. I think that his jiu-jitsu is very good. And while Cannonier has shown good takedown defense, I think Borralho will be able to get him down. I think Borralho will be able to control him. The only real other time that Cannonier fought someone with the jiu-jitsu of Borralho is Glover Teixeira. And this is at light heavyweight back in the day. We're talking about like 2019, but I'm not positive. But I do think that Cannonier hasn't fought a grappler like this. So I do think Borralho can get the takedowns, control him. I personally think he might sub him, and I'm looking at that sub prop at plus 300, plus 320, whatever it is. I think that's a solid spot, and I might take it because, look, Borralho, if I'm right about my read, Borralho is going to get a lot of time on the ground, and we're working with 5 rounds. He's going to have 5 rounds to find that sub. And the beautiful thing about Borralho is, and why he's a good prospect, he's not just a good grappler. His striking has developed to the point where he doesn't have to panic shoot. He can compete with you on the feet and use that striking to set up the takedowns. Because of that, I think Borralho should win. I think he can win by decision. I think he can win by sub. But I don't really think I want to lay the chalk on him at minus 200. I would have wanted a much better line than that. So I'm really only interested in the sub prop for him. Because again, would I be shocked if Cannonier keeps this on the feet and beats his ass? I wouldn't be shocked. Would I be shocked if Cannonier knocked him out? I wouldn't be shocked. Cannonier, even at 40 years old, still has great output, still has a ton of power. And I just think he can still be very competitive against Borralho. But at the end of the day, I do think Borralho will mix in the striking enough to set up the takedowns, and I think he's going to do his best work on the ground as he normally does. He's a very smart fighter. I love that about him. You look at the Paul Craig fight. How many people with a striking advantage over Craig still chased Craig to the ground? And they did not have the jiu-jitsu of Borralho. Borralho knew full well that at the end of the day, he probably still had competitive jiu-jitsu compared to Craig. But still, he didn't do it. Still, he said, get up. To me, that's a really, really smart fighter, a really smart young fighter. Like, you can see he's thinking. He knows what he's doing. Because, in my opinion, 9 out of 10 guys who have his skill set would have been like, you know what? Yeah, I'm outstriking this guy, but I also have great jiu-jitsu. Why can't I follow him to the ground? And they would have followed him. And they probably might have still been able to win. But it's a risk you don't need to take. And if I'm backing somebody, I want to know that they're going to avoid all the risks they can possibly avoid. And I know Borralho will. And that's what I really like about him. I love the fight IQ. I love that he's well-rounded. I love the camp. I love the grappling. So I do like Borralho here. I think Borralho should win. I think the line's wide. Not enough where I want to get to Cannonier. But I do think it's a little wide. Right now, I'm just going to look at the sub prop. That's the only thing I'm really interested in. Decision also makes sense. Cannonier is very durable. He's shown good submission grappling defense. Defended against Glover Teixeira at a higher weight class against a really big guy in Glover. So I could see a decision on the Borralho side as well. That's why I'm not running to play the sub. But yeah, long story short, Borralho for me, no play, and we can move on. So that's the main event, and we're done with that. Now, like I mentioned at the start of the show, Ultimate Fighter is still happening. We talked about the middleweight final. We have not talked about the featherweight final yet. And there's one other fight on this card that is between two Ultimate Fighter featherweights who didn't make the finals. And that's going to spoil the show. So I'm going to break them down because I need to, because this is a breakdown show. I know the fights are happening. I taped them. I have my notes. I have everything done. The show starts in 5 minutes. So again, if you care about not getting it spoiled, dip now. Hop out now. And if you want my breakdowns, come back later. The video will be here. The timestamps will be here. You can hop right to the fights that you missed, and you can get them then. But if you don't care, then stay with me. We're going to break it down. But again, one more time, I'm going to put up the banner. Please, if you don't want the Ultimate Fighter ruined for you, the last episode, if you care, hop out now. Okay? One more time. If you care about the Ultimate Fighter finale and you don't want it spoiled, get out now. All right? I'm going to let that play off a little bit more on the bottom. Thank you, brother. Enjoy the show. I hope it's a good last episode. And thank you for watching. And then let's see what else people were saying here about Kai and Gerald before we jump in. So Champ saying line's starting to get crazy on Kai, but I do think he wins. I think his fight comes down to Kai taking Cannonier down, which would be tough. Yeah, I agree with you. My guy MMA Hokaj, I agree. However, felt like Cannonier shooting. Yeah, but Imavov is an elite striker. Imavov is an elite striker who's young and has a lot of power. And Borralho, while he's young, I don't think he has much power, and I don't think he's an elite striker. So that's the difference for me there. All right, let me pull up the names of these guys because it's not on Tapology. So I got to get their Tapologies up real quick. Okay. Bear with me, fellas and ladies. Pulling everybody up. That's 3 out of 4. We got one more to look up. All right, here we go, guys. So, again, one more time. If you haven't watched The Ultimate Fighter yet, the next episode's coming out in 3 minutes. Get out of here. If you care about the spoilers, hop out. I'm about to spoil the show, so please get out if you don't want to see it. I don't want to ruin the show for anybody. All right. So it got announced a few days ago. It came out on the Instagrams, and this is kind of what ruined it for people. But 2 guys from the show, Zygimantas Ramaska and Nathan Fletcher, are fighting on this card. They are not in the finals, so they did not make the finals. Fletcher, we all know, anybody who's been watching, we know that he lost to Kaan, who is already guaranteed in the finals, so that's not a spoiler. But Ramaska is going to be fighting tonight on the show. Obviously, this happened months ago, but he'll be on the show tonight. And now, look, I don't necessarily know that he loses, and I'm also not convinced that he's even on it, because I'm about to explain. But he's fighting Nathan Fletcher, and here's what I'm thinking. I think there's a few reasons this might be on this card, despite not being a final. I think the two most likely reasons. Let me start with the least likely. The least likely, I think, is that I don't even remember what I was going to say about the least likely. The two more likely ones that I think are going to happen, I mean, that I think are the reason that this happened, is that either A, Dana just said, hey, this card sucks. Let me add another fight to it with two promising guys from the season. And I think the other possibility is that Ramaska actually doesn't fight on tonight's episode. He falls out for some kind of reason. Dana White said maybe injury, whatever. Dana White decides, you know what? Weak card. Ramaska got hurt. Let me bring him in against somebody from the show and let me make one more fight. I think that's a major possibility, and it'll affect my breakdown in a second for the final. But that's what I'm thinking for why this might be on the show. Now, in terms of the actual fight, awesome fight. I think it's a lot of fun. Nathan Fletcher, we know him from Cage Warriors. He's a very well-rounded fighter. He's a great striker. He has good wrestling and really good submission grappling. He did lose to Kaan on the quarterfinals, semifinals, whatever you want to call it. He ended up getting out-controlled. He got his own takedown later in the fight, was able to take the back. Maybe if there was one more round, he could have done something. But you guys know how it is with Ultimate Fighter. It's 2 rounds, and then if it's a tie, there's a third. So he didn't get it. But he's a really good fighter, and he just ran into a guy who's also really good. So he got a little screwed, but it happens. That's the nature of the show. And now Ramaska on the other side, I love this dude. I never knew him before. I knew Fletcher before. I never knew about Ramaska before. I think he's awesome. He's a really good striker. He's got fantastic output. He's got so many different tools and weapons on the feet. The hands are great. The elbows, the knees, the kicks, all awesome. The output is great. He's not the best defensively, but he's really good offensively, and he's going to be the bigger guy here, and I think it's going to make a meaningful difference. Now, the issue with him is he doesn't appear to have the best wrestling. His takedown defense is not very good, and more so than the takedown defense not being great, he just makes a lot of stupid mistakes. Like in his last fight out against, let me pull up the fella's name, Samuel Blasco. Blasco's not great. 10-10 record going into that fight. And Blasco would like kind of try to throw him, or Ramaska would try to throw him, and Blasco's on the back, and then Ramaska's still trying to throw him, and then they end up on the ground, and Blasco has his back, and it's just a terrible situation. And if Blasco was any better than he was, he'd probably finish him there. And it's just not a great look. It's very concerning. And he also did it in the Eduardo fight. Pretty sure he did it in the Gustavo Arak fight. So he's pretty much doing it all the time. Like, he keeps doing that stupid throw thing. And if he does that against Fletcher, he's going to get subbed. Because what do we know? If you go for headlocks in MMA, you're really opening yourself up for your back to be taken. Because even if you take them down with it, the position you end up in when you're kind of perpendicular, all they got to do is circle a little bit towards your hips, and they can wrap around and take your back. In wrestling, we didn't have that issue. The bigger problem with going for a hip toss and like in folk style wrestling, what we did in high school, is if you go for a hip toss, you're very easy to trip on the backside. And then you just get put on your back and you can get pinned. I pinned a few guys that way in my senior season. But in MMA, that's a problem too. There's no reason that wouldn't be an issue too, because if you do that and get put on your back, then you're on your back. But it's also an issue because even if you get the takedown, they can take your back. So it's just not a good thing to do, and he just keeps doing it. So that's like my main issue with him. But other than that, he's awesome. He's a lot of fun. Just a relentless striker with a lot of output, good power, and the tools are great. But with Fletcher, again, he's a very well-rounded guy. He's a competitive striker. I think that Ramaska is a better striker. And I think if we're on the feet, I favor Ramaska heavily. Maybe not heavily, but I favor him. But if we're on the ground, I favor Fletcher heavily. I think Fletcher is going to have a significant grappling advantage. So the pick is Fletcher. I think that he's probably going to be the favorite. And all that said, I'm going to be down to play Ramaska if Fletcher's a significant favorite. If Ramaska's like plus, I don't know. Let me pull up an odds converter. I'm thinking he has at least a better than 40% chance of winning. If he can keep this on the feet and not make his errors, I think he'll look like a favorite. It's just a matter of can he actually do it. So let me see. 40%. That's like plus 150. So for Mashka's like plus. Hold on. Let me think. If Romashka's plus 1. If he's like plus 170, I'd feel pretty good about him. I think that's where I'd be looking to play him, maybe plus 160. I think it's a solid spot. If for some reason Romashka's the favorite, I would play Fletcher because I think he's competitive on the feet, but he has a significant grappling edge. But again, if Romashka's an underdog by more than like whatever, if I think if he's like plus 160, 170, a little higher than that, I'm going to play Ramashka because he's a lot more dangerous on the feet. I think he has the finishing upside on the feet. I think he has much better output. If we're talking damage versus control, I think he's a lot more likely to do damage. So, yeah, I think the logical pick is Fletcher. But I think that if the line ends up being how I think it's going to be, I think Ramashka is going to have some value, and that's a play that I might end up making. Going to be completely odds dependent. But all right. So that's a fight that is not the Ultimate Fighter final. Now, if you've been following the show, we all know that Kaan Olfley, he already made the finals. He beat Fletcher, who we just spoke about. And then the other guy, Mairon Santos, he was supposed to fight Ramashka tonight, a few months ago, but it's airing tonight. And again, it's possible that he beat Ramashka and he's the finalist. But I do also want to say that it's possible if my theory for why I think Ramashka's on this card, if I'm right, and Ramashka's on this card because he got injured and couldn't fight in the finals and Dana wanted to give him a chance, then that means Santos is fighting someone else tonight or a few months ago, but it's airing tonight. That means he's fought someone else. So I could be wrong about Mairon ending up to be the one who's going to fight tonight. I mean, on this card. It could end up being whoever ended up stepping in for Ramashka. That's possible too. I'm going to operate under the assumption that Santos is the one fighting on this card just because I need to do a breakdown and I don't do any more long form this week for UFC. So this is it. I'll do my YouTube shorts, of course, but I want to give a longer breakdown. So I'm going to break down this fight, but it's entirely possible that Santos isn't the one because, again, it doesn't really make sense to me why Ramashka's on this card. The only reason I could think of, again, is either A, Dana hated the card, wanted another fight, or B, Ramashka got hurt, and Dana said, you know what? We have a weak card. Let me bring you in anyways. You didn't lose. Let's give you a chance and see what happens. I think that's possible, and if that's true, then Santos is probably fighting someone else on the show tonight. But we're going to operate under the assumption that we're looking at Kaan Olfley versus Mairon Santos for the featherweight final, and it's an awesome one. It's a lot of fun. It's a little binary, but let's talk about it. So, Olfley, he's 31. He's 5'6". Don't have his reach, and that's really it. And he's 11-2-1. Santos 13-1-0. He's 24, so he's going to be 7 years younger. He's 5'9", so he's going to be 3 inches taller, and he's got a 72-inch reach. I don't know Olfley's reach, but I'm going to assume that Santos is longer. And this is an interesting one. So Santos is really young. He's only 24 years old. All these fights that we've seen from him outside of the Ultimate Fighter, you know, they've all been very he's been very, very young in those fights. And on the Ultimate Fighter, he fought I need to pull it up real quick because I'm blanking on who it was. He beat Edwin Cooper Jr. Okay. Yeah. So he beat Edwin Cooper Jr. But here's my thing with Santos. I think Santos is a really good striker. I think his output is great. I think his power is great. I think he's a little hittable, but the defense is decent. But he's a great striker. He's very young. He's rapidly improving. But he does have a deficiency in the takedown defense, 100%. I mean, he got cooked by Dan Argueta. That's his name, right? Yeah, Dan Argueta. Now, Dan's a really good wrestler, so it makes some sense that he got taken down there and he got outworked, but he just didn't really have any semblance of takedown defense. Once he was on the ground, he had like no ability to get back up. And in the Edwin Cooper Jr. fight, similar story. You know, when Edwin was actually shooting, Edwin was getting takedowns. He didn't have the easiest time holding down Santos, but when Edwin shot, he got Santos down. In the first round, it worked out for him. That's how he won the first and forced it into a 3-rounder after Santos won the second. And at the end of the third round, he took down Santos again, and he was able to hold him, but it was only a few seconds, and then it was a split decision. I can see the argument for either side, but that was the issue there, right? Santos showed once again, he's a great striker. His takedown defense has improved because I'm watching him, and he's very careful, right? He hits the sprawls. He's fast with it, looks for the underhooks. He looks for the hand control. He's doing the right things. I just don't think the takedown defense is there yet. And now on the other side with Ofli, I'm not sure what I make out of him. I know going into the season, everybody was running around screaming off the top of their head that this is one of the best guys on the season. He's guaranteed to win it. And they might end up being right, but I don't know. I don't know if he's that good. Like, I'm watching him, and he's fighting out of the Australia regional scene, and I'm not really high on the Australia regional scene whatsoever. We do get some decent prospects out of it. I mean, look at Cody Haddon tonight on the Contender Series. Looks phenomenal. But I'm not crazy about it as a region for regional MMA. And I'm watching the guy, and he doesn't seem all that impressive to me. His striking is solid. It's serviceable. It's enough to set up the wrestling, and the wrestling is good. But I've seen him taken down in his own right. I've seen him wobbled more than once. And I just think that if he doesn't take down Santos, Santos might cook him on the feet. But that said, from what I've seen with him, I mean, out-grappling Fletcher on the Ultimate Fighter, that's impressive. That's pretty impressive. Fletcher's legit. He's a legit grappler, and Ofli dominated him for the most part until the end of the fight where Fletcher was able to take his back. But is Santos likely to take a back? Probably not. He's really a striker at heart, and that's it. But yeah, I'm watching Ofli, and I'm thinking to myself, how highly do you really think of this guy? Like, is he as great as everyone's making him out to be? I don't think so. I don't think so. I was watching the Jarrett Wilbraham fight, and Wilbraham, again, he's also a guy who fought Cody Haddon, which is funny because completely different weight classes, but he's a decent wrestler. He's got decent power. He did hurt Ofli when they fought, and I didn't like that. I just think that if Wilbraham can hurt you, I'm pretty positive that Santos could probably hurt you, if not put you out. But that said, again, Santos can be a little hittable. Ofli is a serviceable striker with decent striking. And I do think his wrestling's legit. I do think his jiu-jitsu is pretty good. And I do think that it's likely he can take down Santos, control him, and win the fight by decision. So I think it makes sense to make Ofli the favorite. I don't know what they're going to open it at. If he's the underdog for some reason, I'm telling you right now, I'm going to play that line. I don't think he's going to be the underdog. I think he's going to be the favorite. If he's a slight favorite, we're talking minus 125-ish, minus 120-ish, then I'll play him still probably because I do think the grappling edge will be pretty significant. But if Santos is like, I don't know, again, I'm just throwing numbers out there, but plus 180, plus 200-ish, I'd be interested in Santos possibly because he's so young. When he got out grappled by Argueta, we're talking about, I think he was like 21 or 22 years old. He was very young, and he's 24 now. And again, I still think the grappling's deficient, but I think it's getting better. And I wouldn't be shocked if he can keep this on the feet and finish Ofli or have the bigger moments and win the fight that way. So if he's like plus 200-ish, I could be interested in a shot as well. And if Ofli's underrated on the line, then I'd be interested there. So yeah, Ofli's the pick. Can't really say much else without seeing the betting lines. And one more time, I'll repeat it. It is entirely possible that it's not even who ends up fighting Hopefully. If I'm right about Ramaska being out of tonight's episode, then Santos might be fighting someone else on tonight's episode and he might lose. And then I might have to re-break down this fight anyway. So we'll see. But yeah, that's where I'm at. That's the pick. And that's it, guys. That's the show. So I'll run through the fights one more time. I'll give out my plays. And that's going to be it. Right now, the only bet I have is Francis Marshall minus 110 to win 1 unit. So I staked 1.1 unit. And I'm going to wait on that line. If that line gets better, that's going to be one of my biggest plays of the year. But outside of that, I haven't played anything else yet. But looking at the fights real quick, I like Cong Wang to win. I'll be looking at her round 3 decision prop. I like Cavalcanti to win. I'll be looking at her round 3 decision prop or the knockout. I like Reese to win, but I'm not touching it. I like Borshchev to win, but I don't know if I'm doing anything there. Like I said, I like Marshall. I bet him. I like Shahbazyan to win, probably not doing nothing. I like Morales to win, probably doing like ITD, something along those lines. I'm leaning Loder. I think Hill should win. Don't think I'm betting it. And I like Borralho. Not going to bet that money line, but maybe I'll do like a sub prop or something. We'll see. And then with the Ultimate Fighter fights that haven't been announced yet, one more time, if the banner down there or me repeating this 30 times hasn't been enough, spoiler alert, turn it off if you're not interested. Give it a sec. Okay, I'll assume you turned it off. I think Hopefully should win against Santos. And I think Fletcher probably beats Ramaska. But I'm pretty interested in both of the underdogs there if they end up being underdogs like I think. And that's it, guys. Thank you all for tuning in. John Dong over here saying, how would Gene Silva, Woodson, Yair, Rodriguez go? I don't know where the hell that came from. But I think Silva cooks Woodson just because Woodson, I think Woodson at range is a lot better than Silva, but Silva's not going to give him that range. Silva's just going to close the range and just beat him up. And in the pocket, he's way more dangerous. I think he's got all the finishing upside on the feet. I think he beats Woodson. Yair, that's an awesome fight. Honestly, if you're not a matchmaker, they should maybe consider making you a matchmaker because unless that's somewhere out there and you just came up with that, that's impressive. Gene Silva, Yair. I don't know. The aura's on Gene. The aura. Momentum's on Gene. Recency bias will be on Gene, so it'll probably open a favorite somehow. But Yair can make that very competitive. That's a good fight. I guess I'd lean Gene, but again, that's probably recency bias speaking. I'd have to tape it to really know. But those are some fun fights. But all right, guys, that's it. That is UFC Vegas 96. And yeah, my shorts will be out probably tomorrow, if not tomorrow, Thursday. I got some interviews I'll be dropping tomorrow as well. Some fighter interviews I'm going to be doing. And the YouTube shorts will be out. We have a ton of regionals. We have PFL, we got LFA, KSW. We have Road to UFC. Realistically, I don't think I'll have videos out for all of those, but I'm going to be watching, taping them, breaking them down. If I make any bets, if I make any plays, all my notes, my breakdowns for those regionals and for the UFC that I haven't dropped yet, those will all be on my Discord. My Discord is 100% free. You can get my bets, my notes, my breakdowns. In my notes, I do like these charts. I try to break everything down by striking, grappling, cardio, offensive grappling, defensive grappling, cage work, all that kind of stuff. Try to include in my notes. You can get all of that plus MMA discussions. You can talk with me literally all day long about fights. If you hate me, you can talk to other people who are also sharp or more fun, also in the Discord, and it's all free. So make sure to check that out. That's where I'll be dropping all those regional bets if I make them. That's where I'll be adding all my bets for this UFC card and all my notes and breakdowns. All right, guys. Thank you all for tuning in. Peace out and good luck.